Now often when we create an email, the purpose of the email is actually to send files to the recipient or recipients. So we want to attach files and send them to them. To attach a file, I would simply go to the Insert tab in the ribbon and click the Attach File button. Anything that you've been working on recently will be listed and you'll be able to easily attach that file to that email. And so I've attached a Word document called Tenancy Letter, and you can see the W means Word. But it doesn't stop there. I could attach more than one file by simply going in again and choosing another document. And that's an Excel spreadsheet. If there's several files I want to attach and they're not listed here, go into Browse this PC and simply find those files. So I might, for example, go into a certain folder in a certain location, click on the first, hold the Control key and click on each and every other file. So I've used the Control key to select these 3 files and I'll insert those. So use the Control key to select and attach more than one file. But you may have to go into the attached file and sometimes browse several times to ultimately get all the files that you need. Now what's really useful besides telling you what program, so this is Word and this is Excel, is also telling you the size of the files. 39 kilobits, 64 kilobytes, 37 kilobytes, 8 and 8. Be careful that what you attach doesn't get too large. You're often restricted as to the total size of attachments that you can attach. So you may have to send several emails if you're attaching rather large files, individual files. But if you have to attach one file and it's really quite large, you might consider zipping it. So let me go into Attach File again and browse this PC. And I'm going to look for a database because databases are typically quite large. Here's a database here called Northwind. Let me just show you the size. Just shy of 2.5 megs. Before I attach it by clicking the Insert button, I'm going to actually right-click it. When I right-click a file, I have the option to send to and to choose Compress Zip Folder. Now when I click that option, it'll go from being just shy of 2.5 megs to just shy of half a meg. So this is the same file but zipped and compressed, and it's actually 20% of the original size. It's a fifth of the original size. So I'm going to choose to attach the zip file instead of the actual original file. So when they receive it, all they've got to do is double click and then they'll be able to extract and take the file out of the zip folder. So if you've got a large file, consider right clicking it and sending it to a compressed zip folder before you insert it. That may make a difference. It will in the case of things like databases, but it probably won't make too much difference in the case of photographs, which really don't compress that well. So you're going to have a varying level of success depending on the nature of the file, but it's something to try, is to right click and zip it. That way you might be able to add 4 photos to an email rather than send 4 separate emails, which is what you'll have to do if it's too large. Now the other thing to be aware of is where the attachments sit. By default my attachments are sitting underneath the subject field, but often if an email is a rich text format, those attachments will sit in the message area. Let me show you. If I go to Format Text, my email has been formatted by default as HTML. If I choose Rich Text, it'll be formatted as rich text, which means the attachments no longer sit under the subject. They do in fact sit under the message. If I change it back to HTML, they'll sit back at the top again. So be aware that sometimes your attachments are not sitting under the subject. They may be in the message area, and that is because the person who created the email and sent you the attachments decided that they wanted to format the email as rich text, which is a very plain sort of email type. It lets you do bold, italics and underline, but doesn't let you do some of the more exciting things like tables. Some people also send plain text. If I choose plain text, you'll notice my signature will become very plain. And that often happens if they're sending it from a phone or some sort of device. So plain text makes your message very, very plain, but it keeps your attachments under subject. If I flick it back to HTML, I can then right click my signature, and put it back to my default signature, which puts it back to that nice looking signature. So be aware that emails come in three formats: HTML, plain text, rich text. Rich text puts attachments in the message body. Plain and HTML put attachments under the subject. Plain text makes very, very boring text in the message. Switch it to HTML and you'll be able to go back to exciting looking text. If you have a signature, right click the signature when you change it to HTML, then right click the signature and change it back to your signature.